In the shadowed annals of Elizabethan England, where the mists of the Thames whispered secrets to the stars, John Dee and Edward Kelly first pierced the veil between worlds. It was the late 16th century, a time when alchemy and astrology danced in the courts of queens, and the air hummed with the forbidden tongues of angels. Dee, the learned mathematician and astrologer to Her Majesty Elizabeth I, sought not mere knowledge of the heavens, but communion with the divine machinery itself. Through scrying sessions in his Mortlake home, gazing into polished obsidian mirrors and crystal spheres imported from the New World, Kelly channeled visions that birthed the Enochian language, a celestial script of 21 letters, sharp as thorns and resonant as thunder. This was no mortal tongue. It was the key to the ethers, those 30 ethereal realms stacking like invisible ladders from the earthly plane to the throne of the Almighty. Each layer a threshold where human frailty met infinite architecture. The revelations came in fits of ecstatic torment. Kelly, entranced, would describe vast tables unfolding in the ether, grids of letters pulsing with the breath of creation, as if the universe itself were a grand, unsolved cipher. Dee, quill in hand, transcribed feverishly, his manus hieroglyphica already hinting at the monadic unity beneath multiplicity. Yet amid these lofty exchanges, shadows stirred, not the calculated rebellions of fallen angels, but something far more primal, untethered by intellect or grudge. These were the Cacodemons, those ephemeral three-letter entities, the blind forces of nature woven into the fabric of the Enochian calls. Inferior even to the basest human soul in the Neoplatonic scala, they embodied the raw, unrefined prima materia, gales without direction, quakes without malice, the undercurrents that erode mountains not out of spite, but sheer, inexorable momentum. In Dee's diaries, preserved like relics in the British Library's dust-choked vaults, these spirits appear as fleeting disturbances, poltergeist whispers amid grander visions, inks spilling across pages as if the air itself recoiled from their touch. They were not summoned for prophecy or dominion over kings, but for the gritty labors of the world. Stirring winds to scatter ill omens from a traveler's path, churning subterranean waters to unearth lost talismans, or unraveling the psychic knots that bind a soul in nocturnal thrall. Imagine a practitioner in the fog-shrouded moors of Dartmoor, where Celtic seedy legends linger like peat smoke. Here, a lone hedge witch might intone a Cacodemons triad under a gibbous moon, not with the pomp of Solomonic circles, but a simple hazel wand etched with zax, calling forth a spectral gale to banish the fevered dreams of a fevered child. These forces, brute and bovine in their simplicity, demanded no covenants sealed in blood or brimstone. They responded to will alone, a hammer's blow against the anvil of intent. Across the Atlantic, in the root-bound hollows of Appalachia, where Scottish and Irish settlers carried grimoires in their satchels alongside Bibles, the Enochian flame flickered into folk syncretism. A granny witch in the West Virginia hollers, her cabin warded with horseshoes and rowan, might adapt Dee's calls to her conjure bags, stuffing crow feathers with scraps of parchment bearing ROR, invoking the spirit to whip away the haint dogs that bay at misfortune's heels. No vast temple required, just a crossroads under Orion's belt, where the Cacodemon manifests as a sudden chill wind, carrying the scent of wild hickory, clearing obsessions like autumn leaves before a squall. This was magic stripped to its marrow, not the scheming intellect of Goetic legions with their serpentine contracts and vanities, but nature's own fury, leashed by the serious magician who stands unmoved in the gale. Yet their service is no gentle pact. Dee's own accounts hint at the toll, the grosser vibrations fraying Kelly's nerves, leaving him pale and muttering in the afterglow, as if the Cacodemons' blindness reflected back the summoner's unresolved voids. In hoodoo traditions along the Mississippi, where voodoo queens like Marie Laveau wove Enochian threads into their gris-gris, tales persist of root workers overwhelmed. A call to Zium gone awry, birthing migraines that throb like thunderheads, or fevered visions of churning bayous where the self dissolves into silt. These spirits, indifferent as erosion, amplify what they touch, turning a minor anxiety into a tempest of the mind, if the circle wavers. Thus, they forge the adept. Through trial by storm, the magician learns to command not despite the chaos, but through its very heart. This primal interface sets the Enochian Cacodemons apart, a foundation for deeper descents into the ethers, where blind force yields to structured revelation, and the serious seeker claims kinship with the storm. Delving deeper into the Enochian calls, we unearth the hierarchy as it sprawls across Dee's Liber Loagath, that enigmatic tome of angelic tables, a celestial cartography akin to a vast living mandala, where each quadrant and subsquare vibrates with invocatory potential, much like the interlocking wards of a medieval cathedral rose window. At the pinnacle reign the kings and seniors, majestic intelligences such as Bataiva of the fiery subangle, or Zaxanan governing the aqueous depths, their forms evoked in Dee's visions as armored knights astride steeds of flame or wave, dispensing zodiacal wisdom with the gravitas of Arthurian sovereigns holding court in Camelot's shadowed halls. These are the architects, the overseers who orchestrate the dance of spheres, their calls thundering through the practitioner like the tolling of Glastonbury's abbey bells at solstice. Cascading downward flow the planetary governors, Madimi for Mercury's mercurial whispers or the martial Heganel for Mars' crimson forge, each a midpoint between divine fiat and earthly toil, their sigils traced in air or ash to align the stars with mortal striving. Then come the elemental ministers, those tireless agents of air, water, earth, and fire, manifesting in scrying bowls as sylphs with wings of frost or salamanders coiling in hearth glow, their service refined yet still laced with the wildness of their domains. And at the very base, the bedrock of this towering edifice, dwell the Cacodemons, those terse triads, 3 letters forged in the prima materia's forge, Zax for upheaval, Taa for obscured truths, Gieg for stagnant release, wisps of force without form, intellect, or agenda, inferior in the Neoplatonic chain to even the lowliest human daemon, yet potent as the blind momentum of a river carving canyons through eons. Contrast this substratum with the infernal pomp of the Goetic realm, as chronicled in the lesser key of Solomon's brass-bound leaves, demons like Astaroth, thundering forth on dragonback with viperine scepters and crowns of thorned bone, their eyes gleaming with the cunning of exiled courtiers, or Belial parading in chariots drawn by spectral stallions, bartering secrets laced with subtle poisons. These entities scheme across veils of time, their hierarchies a mirror of fallen principalities, demanding flattery and incense clouds, offerings of myrrh and mandrake, and contracts etched in the summoner's own doubts. A Goetic evocation unfolds like a Renaissance masque, elaborate, treacherous, a dance where one misstep invites possession's velvet noose. The Cacodemon, by stark antithesis, is impulse distilled. No pageantry, no grudge nursed through millennia of myth. A whisper of Zen might scatter ill wishings from a Wiccan altar in the sacred groves of Avebury, leaves rustling as if the barrows themselves approve. Or Arwar could roil the subconscious in a Louisiana root doctor's tin-roofed shack, dredging ancestral traumas like catfish from muddy depths, all without the moral mire of infernal bargains. Historical echoes amplify this distinction. During Dee and Kelly's 1580s sessions in Bohemia, exiled from England's sceptred isle amid courtly intrigues, they grappled with these forces amid domestic upheavals. Candelabras toppling, parchments scattering like startled ravens, the very furniture groaning as if the ethers pressed too close. Dee's marginalia in his 5 books of mystery label them grosser spirits, unfit for unveiling cosmic blueprints but invaluable for the mundane's upheaval, banishing quartan fevers from plague-ridden villages, mending fractured alliances in merchant guilds, or in the New World's conjure lore, unraveling the hexes of rival bokors whose powders sour milk and wither crops. In 19th century spiritualist salons of upstate New York, where Fox Sisters rappings mingled with Enochian revivals, mediums chronicled Cacodemon workings in seance transcripts, a call to VTA stirring gales that extinguished gas lamps, driving obsessive entities from parlors haunted by Civil War ghosts, their manifestations crude as summer storms yet cleansing as spring rains. The peril, however, coils like smoke from these blunt invocations. Kelly's own decline, visions fraying into paranoia, whispers turning to accusations of wifely swaps and astral jest, bears the imprint of prolonged exposure, what modern adepts term Enochian radiation, a psychic residue that sharpens clairvoyance to hallucinatory razors. etching sigils into the dreamer's blood. In Appalachian ballads passed orally through moonshine generations, tales warn of granny witches ridden hard by miscalled triads, sudden squalls flooding holler creeks, or winds howling kin names until sanity frays like homespun wool. Unlike Goetic wrath, which simmers with vengeful plots and delayed reprisals, the Cacodemons' backlash erupts immediate and elemental, crows massing at eaves like omens, migraines pulsing with the earth's own seismic hum. Mastery, then, is no scholarly pursuit but a forging. The serious magician tempers will through repetition, learning to ride these forces as a Cornish smuggler rides Atlantic swells, channeling blindness into precision, the storm's roar into a scalpel's whisper. In this layered descent, the Cacodemons emerge not as footnotes but fulcrums, the unpolished stone from which the adept carves enlightenment, their brute service a reminder that true power lies not in cunning, but in harmonizing with the cosmos's untamed pulse. To evoke a Cacodemon is to court the gale's embrace, wrestling not a scheming adversary but the indifferent fury of a squall off the Devon coasts. The ritual distills to Enochian purity, eschewing the Solomonic theater of brazen vessels and virgin parchment for a sanctified void. A circle of salt traced in a New Orleans shotgun house, its walls papered with saints and serpents, or a chalked ring on a Yorkshire barrow mound where ley lines hum like buried veins. Commence with the first key, that primordial thunderclap in the angelic vernacular, Ol Sant Vorsk, Goho Iad Balt, intoned not as rote chant but visceral roar, the voice cracking like lightning across the great table of union, where fire kisses water, air devours earth in alchemical matrimony, and the practitioner becomes conduit for the ether's cascade. As the veil thins to gossamer, select your triad with intense scalpel. For clarity amid obsession's fog, summon TAA, the unveiler of truths shrouded by ancestral specters, akin to an Appalachian tale of silver bells tolling haints into dissipation. Visualize not corporeal horror but kinetic vortex, letters coiling in the scrying glass like smoke from a hoodoo censer, responding to command with the obedience of a river to its banks. Dee's praxis, detailed in his Prague dispatches, yielded tangible boons from such calls. Astrolabes realigned by unseen hands, voyages from plague ports shielded by favorable zephyrs, echoes resounding in contemporary chaos magic, where a Silicon Valley sorcerer might embed a Cacodemons glyph in algorithmic sigils, disrupting digital phantasms that haunt the ether of servers and screens. In Wiccan circles of the Somerset levels, Beltane fires leap higher at their invocation, sylphic allies whipping flames to ecstatic heights, fertility rites blooming barren meadows without the ethical thorns of deeper pacts. The mechanics unfold in phases of mounting intensity. First, the preparatory attunement, fasting under lunar wax, anointing the brow with oil of myrrh blended with rainwater from a sacred spring, as Kelly did in his crystal gazes. Then the call itself, syllables rolling from the diaphragm like stones down a tor, each phoneme a hook into the elemental weave. Manifestation arrives subtle at first, a draft unnaturally chill, candles guttering in unison, escalating to tangible force, winds rattling shutters unbidden, or in scrying depths, the mirrors black rippling as if a subterranean stream breaks surface. Command follows swift. Zax, by the authority of the One, scatter the bindings of name the obsession, as chaff before the harvest gale. Obedience manifests not in words but warp, relief flooding the summoner like cool mist after drought, the entity's departure marked by a sigh of settling air, leaving the space scoured, senses heightened to the hum of unseen currents. Yet the rite's razor edge gleams in its perils, a double bind etched in every adept's scars. Dee's journals brim with cautions, Kelly's trances disrupted by these inferior presences, visions dissolving into static burr, his health ebbing as if the Cacodemons siphoned vitality through unguarded seams. In Salem's shadowed legacies, where 1692's spectral trials birthed enduring hauntings, 19th century mediums documented backlash in florid prose. A misintoned VRO birthing parlor pandemonium, winds howling genealogies of the damned, mirrors fracturing into prophetic shards, the circle breached by crows battering pains like accusations from the gallows, hoodoo practitioners in the Carolina Low Country whisper of storm sickness, post-evocation fevers where the skin prickles with static, dreams replaying the call as tempests devouring kin, remedied only by grounding baths of rue and river stones, or appeals to higher seniors for stabilization. This raw reciprocity demands the serious magician's mettle, not blind faith, but disciplined forge work, where each evocation hones the will against entropy's grind. Through iteration, the adept internalizes the triad's rhythm, Zim's whirl becoming an extension of breath, Taa's whisper a lens for inner sight, transforming peril into proficiency. In the UK's druidic revivals along Hadrian's Wall, solitary workings under northern lights teach this. The Cacodemons' lash, once a scourge, evolves into ally's spur, blind force yielding directed torrent, the evocation a bridge from novice's flail to master's current. Thus, in the rite's crucible, power accrues not as gift, but graft, the storm's heart claimed, its fury bent to the seeker's dawning vision. The Enochian flame, kindled in Dee's Thameside study, leaped the ocean's vasty deeps to ignite the wild magics of the American frontier, where European esoterica tangled with indigenous roots and African diasporic vines in a syncretic blaze. In the mist-veiled hollers of eastern Kentucky, amid clapboard churches and family Bibles annotated with sigils, Scottish emigrants' descendants fused the calls with Appalachian conjure, evoking Cacodemons to ride out haint dogs, those spectral curs loosed by envious neighbors, their howls silenced by triads scrawled on sycamore bark and buried at moonset. This rugged Enochian vein diverged from the Golden Dawn's hothouse refinements, blooming visceral and vernacular. Less Enochian squares on vellum, more whispers over moonshine jars, where a call to ROR stirs creek waters to flush malefic residues, the spirit's force manifesting as sudden freshets carving new paths through psychic silt. Deeper south in the Mississippi Delta's fertile loam, where the river's bend cradles Clarksdale's legendary crossroads, hoodoo lineages trace Cacodemon workings to postbellum root workers, freed women and sharecroppers, their grisgris pouches concealing Enochian scraps amid high John bones and devil's shoestrings. Oral archives, akin to Zora Neale Hurston's ethnographic tapestries, recount a 1920s conjurer in Helena, Arkansas, besieged by a writing obsession, an ancestral grudge clamped like a lamprey, sapping vigor through nocturnal drains. In a levee-side rite, she evoked Gig over a tub of Yazoo rainwater, the call vibrating the surface to froth. The Cacodemon erupted as a maelstrom vision, bayous inverting, the entity fleeing in tendrils of silt, leaving her cleansed, though racked by aftershocks of churning nausea, as if the river's own egg lingered in her veins. Such desubsessions underscore the triad's niche. Where Goetic rites might amplify shadows through dialogic depth, the Cacodemon scours with elemental bluntness, ideal for the psychic detritus of generational hexes or urban phantoms haunting tenement dreams. In the UK's Celtic resurgence, from the Isle of Skye's fairy-haunted braes to Cornwall's smugglers' coves, Wiccan covens and solitary druids reclaim these forces during Samhain veils, weaving three-letter calls into harp-strung incantations that echo Merlin's mythic arts, lost tomes imagined resurfacing in tidal caves. A high priestess on the Lizard Peninsula might summon Zen amid granite tors, whipping coastal gales to guard her Clutie well from profane eyes, the spirit's passage marked by salt spray veiling the rite in mist, a natural ward against the unwary. Their bovine essence, simple, herd-like in obedience, renders them apt for the novice's threshold, beyond meditative stilling into active command, where the young witch learns sovereignty without the corruption of egoic lures, much as a Pictish warrior tames highland stags with steady gaze alone. Yet duality shadows every current. Dee's Monas warns of forces mirroring the summoner's fissures, Cacodemons amplifying latent tempests, anxiety's whisper ballooning to cyclone if the inner ward falters. In New Orleans' voodoo perfumeries where absinthe fumes mingle with incense, elders caution of echo sickness, residual vibrations rebounding as kin misfortunes, crows trailing the adept like accusatory shades, mitigated by banishing keys intoned at dawn, grounding the excess in Earth's patient hold. Appalachian lore adds grit, a 1940s holler tale of a moonshiner's wife, her Zach's call backfiring into cabin floods, beams groaning as if the hollers wept, resolved only by communal singings of higher Enochian hymns, weaving the brute force back into harmonic whole. These narratives, etched in ballad and blues, affirm the Cacodemons' role. Not sovereign, but servant, the wild mare broken to saddle, its gait the adepts to guide through vales uncharted. Ascending from these syncretic soils, the Cacodemons' essence crystallizes in the broader Enochian tapestry, planetary attributions binding them to cosmic wheels, airy Zax to Mercury's fleet-footed errands, earthen VTA to Saturn's inexorable toll, each triad a microcosm of the sub-angles, callable for tailored upheavals, from Venusian Zim dispersing amatory tangles to Solar Han unveiling obscured legacies. In modern revivals, from Austin's occult bookstores to London's Atlantis emporiums, chaos magicians encode them into multimedia grimoires. Apps pulsing with phonetic loops, sigils tattooed as living wards, their forces hacked for contemporary curses, disrupting toxic workplaces with whispered TAA, or clearing digital hauntings from algorithmic feeds. Yet antiquity's wisdom persists. Paracelsus's spagyrics echo in their evocation. Mercury's volatile dance mirrored in the triad's flux, a reminder that these spirits are the philosopher's stone in nascent form, base, volatile, awaiting the adept's fire. Perils deepen in prolonged congress. The radiation Dee's airs describe, a synaptic afterburn, clairvoyance etched into neural grooves where colors bleed synesthetic and dreams replay calls as symphonies of storm. A 20th century Golden Dawn offshoot in Chicago documented cases. Initiates post-Zen evocation plagued by auditory gales, winds narrating forgotten sins, alleviated by grounding in elemental bombs, soil from sacred mounds kneaded into pastes. Ethical contours emerged too. Unlike Goetic moral mazes, the Cacodemons' blindness absolves intense weight, yet demands the summoner's rectitude, wielding blind force for petty spite risks karmic squalls, as Celtic tales of sighty-tricked mortals warn, their gales turning vengeful when will wavers. In Dee's obsessions' shadowed arts they shine, hoodoo uncrossings amplified by gig, obsessions fleeing like smoke from a bluesman's crossroads plea, Wiccan binding releases via ROR, chords of malice dissolving in visualized torrents. Case whispers from the fringes, a 1970s Bay Area commune, their shared scrying marred by collective mania, banished by communal triad calls. The Cacodemons' herd force herding shadows out. Thus they serve not as end, but means. The hammer's swing shaping the blade, blind momentum the forge for sighted art. Culminating this odyssey through Enochian depths, the Cacodemon stands revealed, not aberration, but archetype. The cosmos's feral heartbeat, tamed by the serious magician's unyielding pulse. In an epoch of occult dilution, where social scrolls hawk Goetic glamours, sans sinew, these triads reclaim magic's marrow, will's dominion over wile, elemental truth over embellished lore. From Mortlake's candlelit vigils to Delta juke joints echoing with Robert Johnson's spectral slide, they endure, untamed allies for those who embrace the maelstrom, forging revelation from recoil. Harness with reverence, and the ethers part not in dread, but dawn's tempered light. Blind forces illumined, nature's roar a symphony to the adept's ear, the veil rent for visions eternal.